This is going to be the most useful video I ever make on how to get better at the game of Risk. If you only watch one of my videos, please make sure this is the one. No. This is not clickbait, I promise you. What I'm going to do in this video is take you through the 3 questions that you can ask yourself on how best to progress the game. If you've ever sat at the board game and wondered what on earth I'm supposed to do next, what I'm going to do is give you a really simple 3-question process in order to think about what to do next. As a bonus, I'm going to go through a number of different win conditions for a variety of different game modes. And if you hang around to the end, I'm also going to show you how you can use these 3 questions to become a top Grandmaster at the game of Risk. First of all, a big shout out to Risky Phil. His video on his checklist on how to play Classic Fixed was in fact the inspiration for this video, and it's what helped me become a Grandmaster and then in turn a World Champion. And I'm hoping that this video can do the same for you. However, if Classic Fixed is your bag, then make sure you go out and check this one out. I'll put a link in the description. What I'm trying to do in this video is simplify it down into just 3 simple questions you can ask yourself on how best to progress the game of Risk. I'm also trying to use a list that you can use for lots of different game modes and not just Classic Fixed. Without further ado, let's get into it. The first question you want to ask yourself on how to progress the game is, can the game be won? As Metallica said, if the answer to this question is yes, then nothing else matters and you can just go on and win the game. I mean, there's a couple of little exceptions. You might want to think about who do you want to give second, or you might want to think about if you're in a tournament game, if you want to take another bounty. But in most ranked games, if you can win the game that turn, well, that's what the game's all about. Just go ahead and do it. So first off, I'm going to start with a simple old game of Classic Fixed. What is the win condition in World Domination Classic Fixed? Obviously, it's to eliminate all your opponent's territories and win the game that way, but there's actually a simpler win condition that you need to know in order to know if you can do that. If you have more troops than the rest of the table combined, and they're active, you can go on and attack and sweep the board in that turn. So here's an example from a Classic Fixed game I played recently. I'm the blue player, I've got 199 troops. You can see that white's got 119, red's got 45, and green has 6. Red just slammed into green. Red was my ally. So now that I've got more troops than everyone else combined, and my 177 in particular is active, I can go on to win the game. Let's see how I did it. So first of all, I took out the green player for their cards. I then took out the white player and took their cards. And with the troops that I made from that, I was able to then go on and eliminate the red player that turn. So you can see how if you've got all your troops active and you've got more troops than everyone else combined, you can just simply go and win the game. Now, here's a slightly more complex example because you don't always need more troops than everyone else combined. If you do, it makes it easy. But you can sometimes win when you've got less troops than everyone combined. So in this game, red's just broke my bonuses, but he's left himself on 5 cards. I've decided to eliminate red, take their cards, and use these troops to break green's North American bonus. And at the end of my turn, I've got 54 troops and 5 cards, and my opponent has 45 troops and 2 cards. So the win condition of having more troops than everyone else combined has been met. You don't need to win all in one turn. You can use the power of your cards and your position to take all the bonuses back like I did in this game and eventually beat the player you're opposing. So this is a slightly more advanced example. The simple win condition for fixed is if you've got more troops than everyone combined, but just keep an eye out for an opportunity where even if you've got slightly less than everyone combined, you can use their cards and go on and win the game. So often when I'm watching people on Twitch, they don't even know the simple win condition of whether or not you've got more troops than everyone else combined. But there's also some wins that I see that go missing because people don't know that they can take people for their cards and go on to win the game, even if they've got less troops than everyone else combined. And very often in Risk, you only get the one turn to win the game. Your opponents might use those cards to trade in turn, and then you no longer have anywhere near more than enough troops to be more than everyone else combined. So now the win condition for progressive is similar, but you've got to wait for the sets to get big enough in order to be able to eliminate people, take their cards, trade in turn, and use those troops to go on eliminate the next person, take their cards, and go on and sweep the board in one glorious turn. Now again though, you don't have to beat them all in one turn. If you can eliminate all the players with cards and only leave the players left without cards, you don't have to win all in the one turn. So here's an example. It's a slightly more advanced example. I am the blue player, and you can see that, and I have 0 cards because I'm trying to do a silly 0 card challenge where I don't move until I can win the game. And you can see that yellow has 5 cards. So I'm going to try and take out yellow, then take out pink, and then move on to purple. Let's see how we went. Let's do this, guys. All right. So first of all, I take out yellow, and I get their 5 cards. I trade in turn. I then use this to eliminate the pink player, only just, mind you. And then I'm not able to eliminate purple on this turn. Now, purple has 3 cards. Normally, you only want to do this when your opponent or opponents only have 1 or 2 cards each. But in this case, I suspected that my opponent wasn't quick enough to take the whole board, even if they had a set. And I was going to use my 82% chance of a set on 4 to go and win the game, which is what I did. All right, so for progressive, the win condition is whether or not you can sweep the board by eliminating players for their cards, set in turn, and eliminate the next player to win the game. Now, here's an example from a capital conquest game where the win condition is much simpler. You just have to own all the caps at once. We just had a really crazy game. White had just moved off cap and left their troops off cap. Blue had come down here and attacked everything, but had run out of time and wasn't able to take this cap. I didn't know what to do next. I was in shock about these 2 moves. As soon as you ask yourself the question, can I cap run? It all became really clear. Let's see what I did. That's cap run. Good game. Well played, ladies and gentlemen. And that's how you can win a game of Capital Conquest really easily. And again, I watch so many people and they never ask themselves that question. And there's turns where it just goes missing and they could have cap run and won the game and potentially saved themselves hours of time. So the win condition for Capital Conquest is, can I own all the capitals at once? And it's really useful to ask yourself this question first before you think about anything else. The second question to ask on how to progress the game is, can a player be eliminated profitably? In this case, you want to be like a Terminator. You want to be constantly looking and assessing whether or not you can eliminate any player on the board. And that is the next best way to progress the game if you can't win at that turn. But there's a catch. You don't want to go and just eliminate a player if you're going to be next out. So there's a 2-step process to this stage. The first question is, can a player be eliminated? And then the second question is, am I going to die straight afterwards? And I often see a lot of people make mistakes on whether or not this second question is right. So here's an example from a recent Legends tournament game of mine where I'm the black player. I've got South America, and unfortunately I didn't get a set on 3 on my 3rd turn, and I've had my 4th turn. I'm sitting on 4 cards with just 18 troops. The orange player got a set of 10 on their 3rd turn, and they've traded in, and they've worked out that they can eliminate me. Let's see how they went. So, yep, they were able to eliminate me, albeit with a lucky 2v1 roll. But now they're left with 22 troops and 5 cards. Against a stack lobby full of Grandmasters, they're going to go after you and you're going to be next. And as it so happens, the orange player was next out. They didn't get another turn. So here's an example of where someone worked out that they could eliminate me, but I'm not sure they worked out should they eliminate me effectively. Okay, so if you can't win the game that turn and you can't eliminate a player, the third question you want to ask yourself to progress the game is, can the relative position be improved? So think about the ways that you can improve your position. There's 2 ways you can do so. The first one is, can I improve my own game? Can I take another continent, or can I take more territories to try and get a bonus troop at the start of my next turn? Can I take a capital off someone else? Or if nothing works, then maybe I just take a card and pass. And let's not forget that there are going to be times when the right thing to do is to not take a territory and card skip. So these are the things that you can do to improve your own game, and it improves your own game relative to everyone else at once. Now, the other thing you can do is impact someone else's game negatively. You could break their bonus. You could take their territories down so they don't get a bonus troop. You could set up a card block, or you could feed a kill. All of these things improve your position against the one player that you're trying to hurt. And in fact, that's why I'd recommend it's actually much better to improve your own game in a positive way because it helps you against all your opponents at once, as opposed to just negatively impacting and improving your game against one player. Now, to be honest, this is going to be the question that you ask yourself most of the time. Not every turn can be win the game or eliminate a player. So my advice here is to think through all the things in your toolkit about taking a bonus and whether or not you can hold it, or is the right thing to do, take a card and pass, or break a bonus, etc. Think about all the things in your toolkit and just make the move that improves your relative game the most. Go through the full checklist of the toolkit, of the moves that you can make, and make the best one. That's the best way to improve during this third question of how to progress the game of Risk. So there you have it. There's the 3 questions to ask yourself to think like a Grandmaster. And I think if you ask yourself these 3 questions, you can actually become a Grandmaster fairly easily. Now, I did promise on how to use these 3 questions to become a top Grandmaster at the game of Risk. And it's actually quite simple, really. It's to think about these questions from your opponent's point of view and not just your own. So instead of just thinking about, can I win the game? Think about, can your opponents win the game? So, because if you can't win the game, for example, but you can see that your opponent can win the game, you might want to take your turn by stopping them from being able to win the game so you've got a chance to win later. Or alternatively, if someone else can eliminate a player that you can't and they're going to win the game by doing that, maybe the best thing to do is to stop them doing that by blocking or kill guarding an opponent. So there's some simple examples of how to become a top Grandmaster. You just need to be able to think about these questions from your opponent's point of view and not just your own. Now, in terms of these 3 questions in practice, I've got a few tips. The first one is start with thinking about things from your perspective, and then when you get a bit more experience, then start to thinking about it from others. So yeah, sure, just start with, can I win the game? Can I eliminate a player? And can I improve my relative position? Once you've got these down pat and you've got a little bit more experience on how to improve your game, you're going to be much better at being able to judge how other people are going to answer those 3 questions. So start with thinking about it from your own point of view and then progress to thinking about it from others as well. Secondly, you want to use signposts to get to the question that matters the most really quickly. So obviously when you're starting the game, thinking about what you need to do to win the game on that turn, it's just not going to happen. So it's a very quick, can I win the game? No. Okay, cool. Can I eliminate a player? No. Okay, how do I improve my relative position? You can use a variety of signposts in order to indicate which question you need to focus on. And we had some good examples earlier in this particular video where, for example, when lots of players left their troops off cap, we were able to cap run. Or if a player left themselves with 22 troops and 5 cards, that maybe you want to think about eliminating them. So that's the best way to use these questions in practice. There are certain signposts that you can use to quickly get to the right question. But if you don't know about those signposts, just go through the questions in order and you'll be able to arrive at the best move. Thirdly, think about things on your opponent's time and not your own. At the end of your turn, don't pat yourself on the back at what a great turn that was and how you used the 3 questions. Start thinking about the 3 questions from your next turn. That way, when it's your turn, you're ready to act and not just ready to start thinking. This is a pretty key piece of advice. Yeah, make sure that you don't just start thinking about these things when it's your turn. Now, your opponents will do things that might change your plan. So what I tend to do is come up with my game plan as if it was my move right now, and then I adjust it for what my opponents do when it's their turn. And you saw an example of that in the Caps game. I might have had a game plan of what I was going to do next, but when my opponents left their troops off cap, I had to go back, start the questions over again. Can I win the game? Yes, and I was able to cap run. So hopefully there's some tips on how to use these 3 questions in practice. Now, I have lots of other videos that you might like if you've liked this one. I've got videos on how to attack quickly, what other content creators you might want to watch to get better at the game. I also do lots of the normal gameplay that you might see on other channels, like tournament games, like my classic Risk World Championship, how to play capitals, how to switch targets to progress a game of Risk. But I also take a little bit of a walk on the silly side. I do speedrun world records. I do zero card challenges where I try and win a game of progressive without moving until the very end. And we play lots of zombie roulette. It's just a fun game mode. It's a little bit crazy, lots of chaos, which is really enjoyable to play and watch as well. So hopefully you got something out of this. If you did, please drop a subscribe, or of course, please watch this video next if you like my content. And if you do, I'll catch you in the next one. See you later, fellow noobs. Bye for now.